I think a lot of people forget how much time and energy their ex is actually costing them. It gets pretty surprising at the end of the day. I'm Mario Leone. Welcome to the Voices of Victory channel. This is an episode. It's about your ex. And a fun way to put it is for every X, there's a Y. No pun intended there. But let's get down to business on it. Thinking about your ex is going to cost you a ton of time and a ton of energy. Most of all, there's an emotional charge inside our bodies. You know, when we think of a person, an image comes up in our head, and we get this emotional feeling in the pit of our stomach. That being said, if you're a person that doesn't feel it that way, maybe your brain is spinning around like a hamster on a hamster wheel. In other words, there's a lot of overthinking. What are they doing? What's going on? Who are they with now? What's happening? Here's the dangerous part of it all. A lot of people don't realize how much energy it's really costing them, how much energy it's really taking from them. It's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. And I think we would be foolish to believe that it's not going to impact your health in some way, shape, especially when you get depressed. Maybe your immune system drops. Maybe you're stressed out and your immune system goes down. A lot of people think it's just sadness, it's just heartbreak, it's just missing someone. That's all it is. But it's a whole lot deeper than that. It is the amount of mental energy you are putting out there. And it gets exhausting. Doesn't matter if you're feeling an emotional charge or if the hamster is spinning inside your mind. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel it somehow. When you wake up in the morning and you're immediately checking to see if they viewed something from your side, maybe on social media, or you decide to play out a conversation in your mind while you're driving, realizing that you're responding in your head and they're not even there. Interesting, right? Or a scenario, a fake scenario that never happened, and you reread their text, or you go back to your text and see if it's finally marked as read. So you check social media over and over again, and you're trying to figure out why and what's going on, and you try to understand why someone did what they did. And at the end of the day, everybody has a mental recipe. They have a mental recipe. They have a set of rules in their head, and it's really hard to know what everyone's mental recipe is. But you have to pay attention to your recipe in your life and what you're doing. I think what tends to happen is we put so much external force and energy and effort on the relationship or the connection we have with somebody that we fail to just concentrate on ourselves and move on with our own life. So what happens is your mind is getting filled with thoughts and ideas that are totally occupying you, and you don't feel good about it anymore. You don't feel present in your own life. How can you? You're looking at the thoughts of the past and the feelings of the past, and you're totally occupied. And I hate to say this, but it's exhausting. It's tiring. And your brain will just keep replaying everything. It'll become totally preoccupied with all of the memories, thoughts, ideas, everything that's going on. It plays back over and over again. And your brain keeps just opening that past up, even though that door was already closed. And chances are that person wasn't even good for you anymore. Like they're not good for you. And maybe you're just creating these excuses and reasons as to why they're still good, and you haven't really let go. You haven't said goodbye. And maybe you didn't say goodbye, and maybe they won't give you the chance to say goodbye, but you're going to have to say goodbye on your own. And that's where it gets really important. I mean, you have to be able to sleep at night. That's the reality. So people are just going to repeat this little hamster wheel cycle in their mind over and over again. It just plays like a broken record. One thought becomes 10 or 20, and then 10 thoughts actually become a habit. Before you know it, you're thinking about it all the time. And that habit is impacting your identity. Because what's going to happen is you're going to get evidence. You got to remember, action creates evidence, and evidence impacts your identity. And if you're doing something negative, that also holds true. For positive and for negative. So if you're constantly thinking about it all the time, you're reinforcing your own identity over and over again. Eventually, you have to stop asking, like, what am I doing to myself? Or what am I creating in my mind? And when you start asking questions like, why wasn't I good enough? Why wasn't I this? Why is a loop question. If I were to say, why am I so fat? I would go to the fridge and find 10 reasons. Your brain is like Google. It's going to search out an answer and come back and fill in the blank with whatever it thinks. Why is a loop question. It will just sit there and repeat over and over again. But when you start to say what am I building? What am I wanting to choose for my life right now? It's a little bit different. It's a little bit different than the why. That's where we start to get strong. Because if you start to say, why wasn't I enough? That's where the damage really begins right there. Because you're just going to recycle the heartbreak. It's painful. That emotional charge keeps coming back. Every time you get a picture of them, you hear a song, and that song brings up a neuro association, and boom, suddenly your brain goes back there. A cologne. You smell a cologne, and then boom, your brain goes back there. The heartbreak is painful, I get it. But do you really want to lose yourself? Are you really going to lose who you are inside of the heartbreak? That's what's really worse. That you're losing yourself, or maybe even betraying the concept of you being alone and developing yourself in your strength. When you are alone, is there anything wrong with actually building your own life and focusing on you? Is there anything wrong with that? Because if you're rushing to an attachment with somebody else, that could cause a lot of damage. That could cause a ton of damage. A lot of people don't notice when your thinking and your emotions are entirely wrapped around one person. And then you throw fantasies into it and projections into it, and you're going down a very unhealthy road. A very unhealthy road. Because your mood is going to start changing when a text comes in and it's not them, but you're anticipating something because your brain is thinking about it. Or your confidence will somehow depend on the attention of the other person, or it used to depend on them, and now it doesn't anymore. Or maybe your mental peace in your mind and in your heart somehow connects to being validated by that person. But that's not love anymore. That's not love at all. That's emotional dependency, that's codependency, and it has a ton of repetitious patterns baked into it. You become what you repeat, you become what you absorb, and you got to be careful of what you tell yourself in the privacy of your own mind. Your mind is going to adapt to whatever it's consuming all the time. And if you repeat these patterns, you're starting to consume the past all over again. You're recycling the past. So what happens is your nervous system, and this is where it gets deep because it impacts you. It impacts you through your nervous system. And that's the thing. When we look at the nervous system, you'll expect pain automatically at some point. And that's why some people, when they have broken up with someone, they can't relax anymore. Their mind is always on the external. What about you? What about taking care of you? Because you have to be able to heal. It doesn't begin the moment the relationship ends. The healing does begin when that mental cycle and replay in your head finally begins to just end and stop. So when you stop checking the old text, when the imaginary conversations and projections in your head stop, when the emotional investigations stop on the inside, that's when it all begins. And eventually you realize something beautiful. You were never supposed to build your entire identity, entire life around someone else who didn't fucking choose you. That's the thing. Now that they're gone, now that they left, you feel like a piece of you somehow left as well. And you know what? You're still here. And that's why rebuilding yourself, rebuilding your identity actually matters. Actually matters. It's important, especially after you have your heart broken. Revenge, all revenge does is stir the pot. That's all it does. I have to prove myself to them. What about having boundaries for them for the future, right? What about saying, you know what, let me take that revenge energy, put this into my boundaries and say, this will never fucking happen ever again. I will make sure of it. What about that? Everybody wants to be outward revenge-based and forget about using that energy wisely into having new standards for new relationships going forward. You don't have to prove something. You don't have to try to make them regret leaving. What about rebuilding your life, rebuilding you, your self-respect, your attention span, your development, your health, the relationship with you in your own mind? Because guess what? Life is not going to permanently revolve around someone who's no longer caring about you and no longer standing beside you anymore. And at some point, your energy and that outward effort has got to come back inside you. It has to come home to you again. That is what's important. Because you know what? It gets exhausting. Your emotions will be exhausted and mentally you'll be exhausted. Close your eyes see them as gone, write them a letter, and burn it. If you have pictures, burn those too. Just be fire safety about it. Have a great day. See you on the next episode.